This plant is Leptospermum scoparium, New Zealand tea tree or Manuka, and it's native to New Zealand and Australia. So a lot of us in California especially have been aware of this plant for many years. It's used a lot, and it's also comes in a number of colors in terms of the bloom. You'll see a number of those going forward in the video, and the one you're looking here is probably the best known is Ruby Glow, and that's the one that I have the most video footage of. But very intense red color, very striking. Nothing quite like it really that I've ever seen. So when this one's in bloom, it's quite a show. And Leptospermum, a couple of things in design. One of the things I want you to notice is how big this plant is. The Western Garden Book says that these get 6 to 8 feet tall. The plant you're looking at is at least 12 to 15 feet tall and wide. And so I think that there's some misunderstandings, at least in terms of size. These get much larger than a lot of people think, and some of the other photos you're going to see show some larger specimens of these shrubs. And so I'm located in Northern California in an inland valley where our winter temperatures are typically in the mid-20s Fahrenheit and the summer temperatures are 90s, high 90s to 100, and we have very low humidity. Our humidity is under 20% much of the year. So that's what conditions the ones you're looking at are growing in, just so you kind of set the stage. I set the stage for that. But in design, a couple of things to know about Leptospermum. These really like good drainage, and I will admit that as a designer I don't use this plant very much at all. And the reason is that I live in an area where we predominantly have clay soil, and historically I watch these die a lot, and and those are not on my jobs. I just see these used over and over. Even Caltrans, our freeway system here in California, uses them. And what I find is that too many of them die for me to feel comfortable using this on a regular basis. Now that said, I will tell you that I do think it's largely to do with drainage. We do have heavier soils. Most people plant their plants too low on as a rule anyway, and I think that if things were planted better or we had better drained soils, there'd be quite a different result. But you can't just plant every plant as if it's just another plant. And when you find out that a plant needs good drainage, some need it more than others. And I would tell you that a lot of these Australian type plants and South African plants that like drier conditions and evolved in very hard conditions really do need good drainage, and this is one of them. So that's my main point I would make about this plant, is if you can't guarantee that it will have good drainage because it's well drained soil, or you're able to put it on some kind of a slope where it gets that, then I would tell you that it'd be a good idea not to use this plant. So in design, you're going to see a picture just coming up. The thing that I also don't care for on this is that this is not a very attractive plant when it's not blooming. When it's blooming for probably a month to 2 months, depending, to varying degrees, it's stunning. And the different colors that you've seen go by as I've been talking give you that example. But look right here. This is a typical 2-year-old plant, and the leaves are very dry, small, and needly looking, and as a result you see as much stem as you do leaf, and that's probably my main gripe with this plant. This is Helene stribing you're looking at here, and it's better. You see the darker green foliage there on this plant, so it's not as bad. But look at the different varieties, and if you're looking at this plant, and just be aware of that. In design, the way I like to use this is as a background plant, and maybe a taller one, allowing it to really have 7 to 10 feet of height to eventually cap out at. And again, if it could get as large as the one you're looking at, But if there's going to be some pruning or maintenance, then you can control it. But I certainly don't expect this to stay under 6 feet. And then what I would say is if I'm going to use it and use it in a grouping, then I'd be planting these probably 5 to 6 feet on center. When they're young, they grow more upright than they do horizontally, and as a result, I don't want a lot of space between the plants as they're maturing, because you could wait a long time for them to fill in horizontally in between if you had a grouping. So 5 to 6 feet on center from 5 gallon containers is how we would typically use these, and then we would plant them in full sun. We would make sure that they have good drainage as mentioned, and then also drip irrigation is fine for establishing these, and they're very drought tolerant once they're established. They don't really need water once they've been in the ground for a few years. And also they're deer tolerant and low maintenance. These flowers are self-cleaning. You saw some close-ups, but you saw these woody looking berries on there, and that's part of what these flowers become, is they become a seed or berry that stays on the plant for years. They do look much better if they're pruned and tightened up. They're less leggy and just a nice fuller plant. So I would recommend that if I were using these, is to put them in a situation. I don't really love them hard pruned, but I think tightening them up every couple of years is a good idea to minimize the leggy appearance. Like you see here, this to me is well handled. It's not overly pruned, but it certainly has been shaped. And I think those are the main points I wanted to cover with Leptospermum. Can be a very effective plant and certainly a very showy plant if used right. I just think that this is one of those critical ones that if you're going to appreciate and enjoy it in your landscape design, that you have to know what its limitations are and act accordingly. So that's Leptospermum scoparium, New Zealand tea tree, or Manuka. Great evergreen woody shrub. And by the way, temperature, this is hardy down to the low 20s in my experience Fahrenheit, and can certainly take heat above 100 degrees without any problem. Leptospermum scoparium, New Zealand tea tree. Enjoy.